Hi guys, Elle here again. So a lot of you guys had asked for some book recommendations for Norse Paganism, the Norse Path, the Northern Tradition. That's what's here, this giant stack of books. What's kind of funny is that this isn't everything. It's just what I wanted to recommend. So I'm going to go through it rather quickly and just show them to you, tell you a little bit about each one, and hopefully why I'm recommending it. Not just for beginners, but more geared towards that a little bit, I guess. I'm going to put a link below to another video that I found recently where he talked about some really good recommendations that had a little bit more a lot of them were more historic information on what do you call it, like Norse peoples and what they're practiced, and really current information, and it was a really good resource I found. It also talks about, you know, other Norse pagan books and things like that. But it's a really good resource, especially if you're a little bit more advanced and looking for some good ideas, some juicy to sink your teeth into. So I'll put a link below to that. I'm also going to do some rune book recommendations, because a lot of people asked for that too. But I'm going to put it in a different video because this might take a minute. So, okay. Oh my god, I'm like so gross right now. Excuse me. So I think a great place to start, of course, is with the mythology, with the lore. So I'm going to give you guys a few books that I've enjoyed over the years here. Let me just also start off by saying I actually really haven't bought new books, except I'll point them out to you when I get to it, on Norse paganism really in quite a long time. So a lot of these books are old. And I really haven't stayed too current with what else is out there now. I think, of course, a great place to get started is going straight to the source material, you know, straight to the Eddas, straight to the sagas. However, I sort of started there. This was one of the very first books I bought. I'm like, I need that. But it was also after I had looked things up online and got a little bit more familiar with the gods. This kind of stuff can be hard to understand at first. Same with, you know, some of the sagas. Most of my sagas I find, even all the Eddas you can find online for free for the most part. But Saga of the Volsungs, your Prose Edda. We'll talk more about all this kind of stuff in the future. Heimskringla. But I had also found, in conjunction with reading quote-unquote source material, it was really helpful to have books like this. This is it just called Norse Mythology? Norse Mythology by John Lindow. I don't know if any of these books are still available, guys. I'm so sorry. When did this come out? 2001. It's so old. But it's an encyclopedia, more or less. It has everything listed in alphabetical order: ideas, concepts, deities. It's a pretty meaty book. It's a great starting place. Really, they stick to the lore here. It doesn't expand upon it and give you his own interpretations of things. It's, this is the son of this, and this did this, you know, and this means this. It's pretty basic. But having those places to go to for more information while you're working your way through the Eddas for the first time especially can be really invaluable. And even reading Norse myths reworded, let's call it that, can be a great starting place too, because you understand the story first and then you can go back and read, you know, literally, although what's the word? Although translated, obviously, from its original language, go back and read the original source. But stuff like this, you know, it doesn't have to be this book. But Nordic Gods and Heroes, it is just sort of reworded. I hope I'm getting that right. I don't really remember this book that well. Yeah, it's just like a retelling of some of the classic stories. This is the same too, a retelling of the Norse myths. I haven't gone back and read this stuff in a long time because I think once you are able to pull out the important stuff and the important themes, what's really going on, your source material is the go-to place. But for learning the stories and trying to remember them and familiarize yourself with this entire world, this kind of stuff I think is helpful. What is this? I have one more. Okay, what's this guy? H.R. Ellis Davidson. Every single thing she, right? I think so, has written is fucking wonderful. This one specifically is Gods and Myths of the Viking Age. I think it's a great, great starting place. It's not necessarily a retelling of things, more of an explanation of concepts and gods and stories. God, I kind of want to reread this one now. The Hammer of Thor, the Temples of Thor. It's a mishmash of stuff. Valkyries and Odin. Odin as shaman, the end of the world. You know, it's sort of a walking you through some of the myths and explaining some things. It's a good book. All right, what else? Here are some great intro books to actual pagan practice, let's call it that. Exploring the northern tradition. Galina Krasskova, I absolutely love her. Again, while I don't agree with a lot of her interpretations of things, she writes beautifully. The prayers included in here are so eloquent and gorgeous, and I take those prayers, I love them. And she also writes in a way where it's sort of relevant for all the different paths that are under the umbrella heading of Norse Paganism. She doesn't exclude anyone. All opinions are sort of welcome here. And the same thing with this book that I just got recently. I think it is a fairly recent book too. Northern Tradition for the Solitary Practitioner, written by Galina Krasskova and Raven Kaldera, who also has several books out on Northern Shamanism. Exploring the Northern Tradition and Northern Tradition for the Solitary Practitioner. Even if you're not a solitary practitioner or don't plan on being one, it's a great book to read. It talks about, this one, the Solitary Practitioner book, talks about all the different paths to follow, different sort of groups that exist under the heading of Norse Paganism. Or the Northern Tradition umbrella, I guess is better put. She talks about prayer and meditation, gives some real concrete ideas for practice. The same is kind of true of this book too. There's some just concrete ideas for you to use and start your own practice. You can take it verbatim right out of this book, or you can take some of those ideas and twist them and work them into your own, worldview, into your own personal practice, which is what I do. This is another book again, I don't agree with most of it, but I love that it's all here. This is Our Troth by Kveldulf Gunderson. I believe there is no author listed here. He says it's compiled by Kveldulf Gunderson, but it's by the members of the Troth and other true folk, so it sort of comes from all over the place. It is a huge book. I mean, it's like, 600 pages? Almost 600 pages, look at that. It's huge. That's what it looks like again. And this is just volume 1, by the way. I actually never read volume 2, but volume 1 talks about the lore, and it talks about history. They do they don't go into ritual and things for you to actually do. That is in Living the Troth. Our Troth, volume 2, Living the Troth, I think is what it's called. I already have my own practices. It's something I might scoop up one day. It's always sort of sitting in my shopping cart. I should read it. But when I first started, this was a must book for me. I needed it. I needed to know how other people saw the gods. I needed to know, just to be elaborate on some of the ideas and what people were picking up on. It's first published in 1993. This is the second edition. This is I had this one for friggin' ever. It talks about ideas, you know, soul, death, and rebirth, the 9 worlds, the Disir and the Valkyries, giants, and all the gods and goddesses have like a huge amount of space devoted to them. Sorry. And then the first 100 pages is history. The modern revival, the Viking Age, the migration before that, the Iron Age before that, the Bronze Age before that, the Indo-Europeans before that, and the Stone Age before that. It's a feat. There's a lot of information in here, and I think a great starting place. Even if you haven't delved into the source material, you know, the Eddas and stuff, this is sort of, you know, like how I was talking about things like this, or where things are stories are retold, or the encyclopedias, where you could look things up. This is sort of like that too. You know, they'll tell you the stories behind each god and what they represent in their worldview. What else do I have here? Oh, let's do this one now too. Excuse me. This was one I really, really liked. Well, it's not specifically about Norse paganism. It's called Falcon Feather and Valkyrie Sword, Feminine Shamanism, Witchcraft, and Magic. It was sort of my way of blending these different worlds that I was interested in, you know, blending my witchy nature with my Norse pagan ideology, and that's what the book is, as far as I'm concerned. There's some Celtic ideas in here. There's some, oh, I have a feather in here. Oh, I haven't looked in here in forever. Self-initiation. There are literal, I have this here for a reason, I'm sure. What was I saying? Oh, full moon ritual, dark moon ritual. If you are, that's something I still enjoy. I don't know, a bit more interested in the witchy path, or goddess worship. There's so much in here. Oh my god, I want to reread this. There's some history and stuff in here too. It talks about Kali even. It goes to a Hindu place, Japanese stuff. Color symbolism. Oh, goddess symbols. But it does have a bit more of a shamanic perspective, but she gives you ritual ideas, she gives you healing ideas, ways to celebrate the holidays. It's a very general pagan shamanic sort of a thing, with a bit of a Norse twang to it. She's even got a, Jesus, this is wonderful, the journey to Folkvang. I mean, come on. Preparing yourself for a journey to the home of the Vanir goddess Freya and the Valkyries. Got some very interesting interpretations too. I'm sure most Norse pagans would say this is not a book you want, but I don't know. I like that kind of stuff too. So I'm gonna recommend it. Oh, again, actually this is a good one to do next. Goddess of the North. Goddesses? Just goddess of the North, but it does talk about all sorts of different Norse goddesses. And the Valkyries, of course. Oh, they even give some fairy tales. I think those are so important too. Those folk stories from of German origin and things. They're so good. Oh, there's a great little glossary in the back too. But it gives you a lot of history and a lot of information about all the goddesses of the northern tradition. How many pages is this guy? Again, this is an old one too. About 250 pages, but that is Goddess of the North by Linda C. Welsh. Okay, moving along. I actually have quite a few books on seed magic, or I don't know, I just kind of call it Nordic shamanism. It's magic with trance work and meditation and journeying or faring forth. I call it astral projection. It's all that sort of ecstatic work. And then in the northern tradition, it's called Seed, Seidr, Saith, Seath magic. Like, there's a million different ways to pronounce it. Sorry, let's do this one first. This is the one I would first probably recommend, The 9 Worlds of Seed Magic, by Jenny Blaine. It's a bit more of an academic work. It gives you some really interesting ideas for your own practice. I really, really love this book. It was the first book I ever bought on seed magic, or seath work, and sorry, I'm having such a trip looking back through some of these books. The subtitle of the book, anyways, Ecstasy and Neo-Shamanism in North European Paganism. Let's see what she says back here. Shamanistic practices known as Seidr, whatever, often involving interactions with the spirit world and states of altered consciousness, lie at the heart of the pagan religions of Northern Europe. This accessible study explores the ways in which Seidr, a key element of ancient Scandinavian belief systems described in the Icelandic Sagas and Eddas, is now being rediscovered and redeveloped by people around the world. The book draws on a wealth of research and experience to analyze the phenomenon and place it into context. Written by someone who is a practitioner as well as a scholar, this is a unique exploration of what northern shamans do and how they speak of the spirits they meet. It is set within discussions of shamanism, identity, insider ethnography, and new directions in the anthropology of religion. It will fascinate all those with an interest in the possibilities for alternative spirituality in today's world. It's a really good book. Okay. There's lots of other, that's what I was going to say. There's lots of other books on Seidr magic. There's quite a few that I liked parts of, or bits and pieces of. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. I could do a whole video on good information on like northern shamanism, but I just wanted to include it here because I think it can be a huge part of your Norse pagan path. I know it is for me. Another book of devotionals by Galina Krasskova, The Whisperings of Woden. The Norse god Odin, known among the Anglo-Saxons as Woden, has been revered and honored for thousands of years, although the original religion and cultures that worshipped him were irrevocably changed by the spread of Christianity in Europe. He is still very much honored today among the Reconstructionist heathens. And it's non-Reconstructionist heathens. But yeah, it's got some interesting ideas, and I did want to recommend it. I love the way she writes. Different things you can do. Actually do. I know that's what a lot of people really look for. They're like, I need ideas for what I can do to practice. Woden incense is in here, path working, writing as meditation, all sorts of different ideas. Volknot centering meditation. Their devotional is the sacred feast. Different ways of practicing and devoting yourself to Odin. Yeah, cute little book. This one is by Swain Wodening. Germanic Magic. Oh god, that's impossible to see up there. The whole entire cover is like red. And the lettering is in red too. I wonder if this has been redone. But it's actually a great primer to everything Germanic. Even the title is a basic primer on Galdr, runes, spey, and herbs. So while it's not a basic primer onto Norse paganism, on whole, it's going to talk about Galdr, the runes, spey, which is sort of an Anglo-Saxon way of saying Seidr, like we talked about before, seed magic, for journeying, shamanism, trance magic, the spey rite. He does go over the runes, but the Anglo-Saxon runes he gives you. So it kind of seems to come at things from more of an Anglo-Saxon perspective on whole. The basis for Volsungs. There's some really cool stuff in here. Communicating with whites, land spirits, the spey rite, Utaseta, sending the fetch forth. That's a bit more of a shamanic. It's very cool. Herbs. I've never been very interested in herbs, herbalism, herb stuff. Just not my thing. Okay, is this the last book? Holy shit. This is Voluspa as Saith. Voluspa Saith as Weird Consciousness. It's a very interesting book, and I wanted to include it here. It would probably be a little hard to understand for people just starting out on a path, or people who have no interest in going to the shamanic side of things. I wanted to include it here because it's stuff that I'm into. This book is very hard to explain. Basically, it uses Voluspa. She goes through Voluspa and sort of talks about that in light of trance work. I mean, Voluspa is the sayings of the Volva, a shamaness, a seer. Let me read the back of the book to you. I don't know if it's going to help much because it's even sort of out there, but Saith as Weird Consciousness is a non-event which explains the difficulty encountered in defining and therefore understanding its primal state of existence. However, once consciousness has been penetrated, there is an accompanying realization that one has access to vast reservoirs of ineffable knowledge and wisdom. Far from being a new realm of spiritual inquiry, this process of knowingness or profound perception and all-encompassing awareness is intuition beyond intuition, meaning saith is recognition. That didn't help at all, did it? But it's a cool book. Check it out if you're looking for, more talk about ecstatic states, trance work, altered states of consciousness. Boom. Okay. I'm gonna stop there. That was a lot of fucking books. But it's good stuff. It really is. I hope I gave you sort of a starting place. I mean, there's so many websites out there too. Google, like, Norse paganism, Ossatru, Odinism, heathenism, Northern tradition, spacecraft, Anglo-Saxon pagan, whatever. Oh, actually, you know what? Speaking of Anglo-Saxon, let me give you two more books real quick. They're both books by Brian Bates. He actually has another one that I think I read it, and I don't know where the book is, if I bought it or if I got it from a library. I don't know, but I remember reading it vaguely. But it was called The Wisdom of Weird. But all I could find, and that's not a work of fiction. This one, The Way of Weird, is a work of fiction. The other one is a non-fiction book talking about the Anglo-Saxon paganism, basically, explaining the ideas of the gods and all that kind of stuff. This, I think, is so cool because it's even described like that down here on the book itself, but it literally is like a Carlos Castaneda for the Northern Practitioner. It's the story of this Christian, oh God, it's been so long, I don't remember the whole thing. Sure, it says it back here, but oh yeah, look, sent on a mission deep into the forests of pagan Anglo-Saxon England, Wat Brand, a Christian scribe, suddenly finds his vision of the world turned upside down. The familiar English countryside is not what it seems. Threatening spirits, birds of omen, and plants of power lurk in this landscape of fallen terrors and mysterious forces. With Wolf, a sorcerer and mystic, as his guide, Brand is instructed in the magical lore of plants, runes, fate, and the life force, until he finally journeys to the great spirit world on a quest to encounter the true nature of his own soul. This book is wonderful. I remember I read it in like a day. I think I reread it a few times. It was a long time ago, though. I gotta reread this. It's such a fun, fucking wonderful book. There's so few that, there's so many books written about like Native American shamanism or Peruvian shamanism, I don't know, all these things, and there's like nothing, there's not much anyway about anything, especially nonfiction. This is set in a world that you'll become very familiar with if you're on this path. Anyway, I'm gonna do one more book by him that I could find anyway. And this one's called The Real Middle Earth. I lost the book cover of this guy too, sorry. But it's by Brian Bates, and it is called, oh, that didn't work. The Real Middle Earth. It, of course, came out during the time when Lord of the Rings was out in the theaters. But yeah, he takes that Anglo-Saxon, Norse, Celtic, all the things that sort of inspired Tolkien in Lord of the Rings, and talks about where they came from. So it's really cool, especially if you're not a fan of Lord of the Rings. Fuck it, do not get this one. But yeah, it's really cool if you are a fan, because it's a cool way to talk about our own history. There's some pictures in here too. Viking Age, Celtic stuff, Yggdrasil, Anglo-Saxon, Sutton Hoo treasure, the shapeshifters, spider monsters, the Web of Destiny, the Raven's Omen. I'm just reading some chapter outlines. Plant magic, and spirit nights. It's just stuff that's like relevant. And this is, oh, I shot myself in the head with this book. Stuff that's relevant to us as northern practitioners. You know, it's cool. Okay, that about does it. That was a lot of fucking books, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. And stay tuned. I'm gonna go through, not quite as many, but a few books on getting you started learning the runes. If that's something that you're interested in, check it out. I'll see you in a few. Bye.